Hey, buddy, what's going on? It's going to be a great show today. We're going to have some fun. We're going to be joined by Paul Villarreal today. We're going to talk about all kinds of different things going on in the world, and we're going to check the audio here on Newstalk 1040. 1 second.
Good afternoon. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer.
Okay, we're going to be on in about 1 minute. I just got the call, so it's going to be awesome. Looking forward to your calls and comments and discussion, and we're going to get all over it. So a lot that's happening. We're seeing the political action heating up. There's a lot of things that we're going to talk about in terms of technology and business and a lot of fun stuff. So just stay tuned here. We should be going in about 30 seconds.
90s, lows nightly in the
All right. So yeah, it's gonna be great. So give me about 20 seconds here. We're just gonna have some clear air, and then we're gonna get on the show.
Yeah, and Catania.
Get ready.
More than just their school.
This should be the last spot here. So a lot happened in Iowa. We're gonna get right into that. The national polls. We're gonna get all over that. It's gonna be fun.
By the U.S. Army and the
Its management, staff, or advertisers. Welcome to the John Villarreal Show. Now, here's John.
Hey everybody, what's going on? Tampa Bay, what's happening? It's me, John D. Villarreal, and this is the John D. Villarreal Show. What a week. This is it. July 31st, last day of July, right here in 2023. So much to talk about, so much to get into. And really what we're talking about right now, to lead off, we just have to get into this, is the primary. First we've got stuff with Hunter Biden. We've got Devin Archer up there on Capitol Hill. We've got the Iowa action that was going on, a huge Trump rally in Erie, Pennsylvania. Just so much to get into. Now, I've been telling you, and I don't know how much he wants to get into it, so we may or may not get into it, but I've been telling you that Paul Villarreal, who is going to be joining us here momentarily, is doing some stuff out there. He's really connected. I told you that. I've told you that I'm connected, but Paul is also very connected. I don't want to reveal too much, but he had a very viral post recently. He's been on the QT, he's been on the DL, and I mean, this thing caught massive attention. He's got massive followers. At some point, we may hit the reveal on it. We'll save that for a little bit, all right? But I'm just telling you, the skills are high. The connections are high. A lot of stuff's happening. I do want to talk about this, though. And, well, let's bring in Paul right now. Paul, what's going on? Are you with us right now?
Yeah, John, what's going on? I hope everybody's having a good day there.
Okay. So, now, I want to talk very rapidly about what's happening in the campaign and in Iowa and everything like that. Now, we are being joined, and obviously we're on Newstalk 1040am, the greater Tampa area, so people can hear us all the way from Sarasota, Wesley Chapel, Lakeland, St. Petersburg, Tampa, so many different places and all in between. And we love that. And we love the ownership and management of Newstalk 1040. And I was actually talking today to some of the upper brass, and they really love the show, in my opinion, or at least I was actually talking to the owner today, and who loves the show, and we really appreciate that and the feedback, and we appreciate the whole team there at Newstalk 1040. And of course, we are live right now on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And we want to do our best to bring everything to really connect with that Newstalk 1040 audience and really bring them the information and entertainment that they want. And part of that, I think, Paul, is what's happening in this election. We've had all kinds of activity. What did I say last week? We talked about Ron DeSantis, Governor DeSantis, had to do something different to reset this campaign, had to shake it up, had to take control of it. We're seeing some of that, I think. But we're also seeing tremendous moves by the Trump campaign, and we're also seeing some other stuff out there by Governor Chris Christie, Representative Hurd. I mean, there was some stuff that happened in Iowa that I think is just absolutely crazy. And we're going to get into that. I'm going to go off on I'll have a little mini monologue on that, if you will. But I want to use this opportunity right now to get into what's been happening with you to the extent that you want to talk about it. can you tell me a little bit about, and tell the Newstalk 1040 audience a little bit about, what you're seeing out there and what's happened on the internet in regards to you? I don't want to say more than that because I don't know how much you want to reveal, but I'll give you a stage right here to talk about what you want to talk about.
Sure, yeah. Well, the thing is this. I pay a lot of attention to what's going on the political internet, particularly on Twitter. And one of the things I like to do is just watch speeches, rallies, addresses, and those type of things, and kind of tell people what's going on. Not just what did you hear, but why are you hearing it, and kind of like an inside baseball of it from a strategy perspective. I made the analogy to you off air of you being a former wrestler, amateur wrestler. If you watched a tape of an amateur wrestling match, you would see things that other people who didn't wrestle would see. For
Correct.
us, because we've been involved in politics for so long, it's the same type of thing. We kind of know what's going on. We've been involved in campaigns, and so this had to do with my thing that got a lot of attention had to do with the recent speech by one of the candidates. And it was just kind of like, look, here's what happened. Here's why it was done. Here's where this is going. Here's what the strategy is, and so forth. And people liked it. And I was happy about it. It was pretty overwhelming, to be honest with you. But it was fun. It was enjoyable. And look, we hope that we can, our goal, as you know, is to bring value in the radio show, to bring value in what we write, to bring value in our discussions with people, so they get something that they're not going to get anywhere else. And I think we're doing a good job of bringing that.
Well, that's definitely the goal, and I'll say a few things about that, and I appreciate that setup, and that's exactly right. It's one thing, first of all, people want great information out there in Newstalk 1040 AM, and they want, when we talk about things, I think people have seen some of the guests I've been able to bring on here, and I have barely tried, okay? I mean, we're because I've been busy, I've been doing other things, and also I kind of also believe a little bit of the Rush Limbaugh theory of, that I can carry the show all by myself. But I love to talk to guests too. So I kind of go betwixt and between, right? I mean, in some ways I love to do the Howard Stern thing not in terms of content, but but he is a great interviewer. Or Joe Rogan, let's use that. Everybody understands Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan in terms of the interview skills, but also, Rush Limbaugh in able to be able to carry an entire show all by myself without callers, without, guests, without anything like that. But I also love to have a conversation. I love to mix it up. And that's what's great about the John D. Villarreal radio show here is you never know what you're going to get. I don't even know what I'm going to do. So you have to tune in to Newstalk 1040 and here on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook to know what's going to happen. And in a week, Paul's been able to, I don't want to say become part of the news, but I think what it really illustrates is the desire and the deep need out there in terms of not just bringing you information and doing maybe a play-by-play or something like that, but also in terms of the analysis and a somewhat unfiltered analysis, if I'm having that right, Paul, because there's so much of the media now that is, quite frankly, corporate and controlled. And people, I mean, even if you turn on, I don't want to name the names. We're not trying to sit here and do that and name drop. But I mean, you go across the dial and you've got to ask yourself, what's the agenda? And is it an anti-Trump, anti-MAGA agenda? Or beyond that, or left wing, or who knows, right? And we're seeing all kinds of different things going out. You're seeing tremendous action in the box office from movies that aren't even promoted, but people are going out there and really, trying to see these movies. At the same time, you've got everyone, Barbie. And listen, I haven't seen it, but I have zero desire to see that movie. If you want to see that movie, then that's fantastic. But there's a lot of movies I don't want to see, quite frankly. Because all these movies, it's for almost a decade now that it's almost like, name the movie part 10, part 15, part whatever. And it's the same thing with these campaigns. So I think there's a lack of imagination. There's the occasional amazing movie. There's the occasional great story. But what we're seeing now, whether it's Sound of Freedom, whether it's the writer's strike, there's so many different stories out there. There's so many different, Dave Chappelle. There's so many different things going on, Paul, and we see it in the political end of the spectrum, and we saw it with the lockdown with great luminaries that were getting kind of like, Dr. Marty Makary, we Alex Berenson. We've seen the Stanford doctors and all this. There's a real question marks, and we've seen it now with there was a Twitter files, now there's the Facebook files. Don't you think? And here I'm going to let you. I want you to weigh in on this. Don't you think, because based upon what happened to you, and we're going to get right in the campaign, I'm going to have a monologue on that, and I think you're going to love it. People really want some real analysis. People want to hear from people. People really want authenticity now more than ever. We don't want these corporate donor-controlled campaigns. I think Governor DeSantis is running into this problem. There's a lot of stuff like that, and I think that is indicative of the success that you had with what you were doing online.
Yeah, it was. One of the things that was the feedback that I got was, look, somebody flat out said to me what you just said, which is we need your voice. We need somebody to represent what's going on. And I think that's one of the reasons why Trump has caught such fire, because he's not a cookie-cutter candidate. He's not running a standard campaign. There's a lot of people who feel, apparently, the last 10 years or so, that things have kind of gone topsy-turvy in the way that they view the world, or what is going on in the world. And Trump, to them, feels like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I don't like what's happening either. Maybe we should kind of like do something a little bit different. And the events that he does are just, they're almost like they're just, it's beyond just a simple gathering. It's just like a kind of, it's just an amazing, like, tuning of these people who feel this way. Look, I live in Pennsylvania. I live in Appalachia. I live in, Pennsylvania is about 70% Appalachia, except for the southeast part near Philly. There are many people like that here. There are many people who are not, they're not in the urban setting. They're common people. They're farmers. They're not up to speed on all this, and they don't like where some of the things have, or maybe have gone. And these people love Trump. I cannot begin to tell you how many signs there are around here. And remember, their signs never came down. They never came down from 2020.
Senator Fetterman was just talking about that.
Yeah, he was. I'm glad he said that, because he knows Trump and him draw a lot from the same voting pool. That the reason why I can tell you this as a Pennsylvanian, Fetterman has a lot of appeal here. Even though people look at him like, oh, what are you doing? The basketball shorts and the hoodies, but there's a lot of people like him here. And Oz, and I like Dr. Oz. I respect him. He's highly educated and everything, but the crudité, these types of things, that didn't work so well. Although, look, he did much better than Mastriano did. Mastriano ran a terrible campaign, whereas Dr. Oz started poorly and then came up a whole bunch. But anyway, going back to the other point, I think...
Just super quick. Why do you think that Senator Fetterman rocks the hoodie? Why do you think he's walking around in the basketball shorts? Do you think that's for no reason? And again, I love Dr. Oz, and he's great and everything like that. Again, I'm not saying I'm endorsing all his policy, whatever like that, but just at a distance from what I've observed. Obviously super successful, great story, tremendous education, everything like that. But always with the suit. Kind of got a little bit away from that. We rocked the blue jeans and the shirt with the rolled up sleeves a little bit. But Fetterman, like you said, Fetterman had his pulse on that electorate. Yeah. You and I went to school there. We live there. We know what it is. We were like 30 miles from West Virginia. I went to school for a little bit in Wheeling. We understand it. And I think that say whatever you want about the politics, Senator Fetterman knows that electorate.
He totally
Go ahead.
does. He 100% does. And even with the unfortunate medical issues that he had during the campaign, he did have a lock on that group of people. And look, I really, truly believe, and we can talk about this later, that the effort that was put out by the Democratic Party here in mail-in voting was unbelievable. And I think it's the Republicans who didn't match that effort. If they had been able to kind of get in the game a little bit, I think Oz would have won. But he didn't win, and Fetterman, no matter what, was a really good candidate. And he the reason why he wears the hoodies and the shorts is because a whole bunch of people in this state dress like that.
100%.
Just like, they go to work. There's a lot of blue-collar people who, as soon as they get off work, they're dressing like him. They're going to Walmart looking like that, which is totally fine. I dress like that a lot of times.
Let's lay it out
they were
very
like-
clearly. In Pennsylvania, you've got two major cities, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, right? And you could say, okay, Harrisburg State College, maybe some of the little teeny bit, and you have a little more experience in those areas than I do. But in large part, we were in the outskirts of Pittsburgh, and it was every bit of this. I mean, once you go, once you get off one of the bridges, basically. From Pittsburgh, life changes very rapidly. Once you hit like Cannonsburg on Route 40 and you go beyond that, like forget about it. And I would think it's similar to Pennsylvania once you go past Bucks County or some of the suburbs there. But the rest of it, almost all the rest of it, is basically like coal mining stuff, 4-H land, rural, all that type of stuff. Right, and it's a very, very, very different vibe, and I don't want to get too deep into this specifics, but what it is say it's saying the same thing, and we could say the same thing about Ohio and East Palestine. We could say the same thing about Kentucky, about Alabama, Mississippi, Texas. The elites are totally out of touch, and the elites in the party are completely out of touch with the American people. I would dare say they're out of touch with the audience here on Newstalk 1040. Whether it's St. Petersburg, even, Tampa Bay, definitely Sarasota. We've seen things in Sarasota with the new college and Chris Rufo and some other stuff going on right there. Lakeland, Wesley Chapel, they're out of touch. And talking about out of touch, and I want to spin it this way. Let's talk about this and tee this up, and we'll talk about it more in the next segment as well, Paul. This whole situation with the Iowa event there, and you had Trump come in, and there was a Lincoln Day dinner, and some people were like, hey, what about the intro song to Trump and the Only in America thing, but you had a number of candidates, whether it was and comments on the Sunday show. So let's just jam all that together over the weekend, right? Chris Christie talking about Trump out on bail, Congressman Will Hurd, or former congressman, or whatever, that was talking about just railing against Trump, and in the Lincoln Day dinner, and he got straight up booed. Some say booed off the stage. I don't know. I thought the speech was done, but very vocal, very audible boos, like no confusion, strong booing. And here's the thing, and I said this to you before the show, and I see if I can phrase it correctly right now. Look, dude. If you're running on the Republican side, I'm going to say it right here. Let me get this microphone up. If you're running on the Republican side, and your number one thing, all you have to say, whether it's at the Fox debate or Iowa Lincoln Day dinner or meet and greets in New Hampshire, whatever it is, if your most important thing, if the number one thing you have to say, and I don't care who you are, Governor DeSantis or anybody else, if what you have to say, the most important thing you have to say is how bad Trump is. And basically, are you potentially insinuating that Trump criminal or this and that, whatever? If all you can do is slam Trump in some way or fashion, then why are you running? Because if you think the last 4 years is somehow acceptable, if you're okay with that, if you're cool with where this country is right now, then please don't run. That's what I have to say. That's not advice or anything like that. That's my personal opinion, because you're an absolute joke. If you're cool with what happened with the pandemic and the lockdowns, if you're cool with what's happening in school with our kids, if you're cool with what's happening at the border, if you're cool with what's happening with the economy and interest rates, do you understand that people are being absolutely crushed out there? I used to love California. It was so great. I spent so many years in California. My family was out there. My family's still out there. Do you understand that there are communities right now, there are streets that are and businesses that are totally locked up, that can't do anything? You think you're just going to criticize Governor Newsom? It's great. It's not about your politics. It's not about your campaign. It's not about your book. It's not about all that, you getting rich, getting on Fox News or all this other garbage. It's about this country. And if you can't step up on that and you can't sign in on that, please get out now, because you are an absolute joke. You are a joke. And I don't know, if the consultant or whatever, I don't know why they're running, but Governor Christie, you have zero chance of winning. And if you do not, so I don't know what's worse. I don't know if it's, that and you're running for, I don't know. I'm not insinuating anything. I'm just purely speculating here on the radio on the John D. Villarreal show. But wait, why are you running? Do you not understand that you pretty much have? What did I say about Mayor Suarez? Has anybody even talked about that dude? He's at 0%, dude. Why are some of these candidates running? And no less than Senator Romney's like, everybody needs to get out, so we have one person, one anti, Trump candidate, if you will, versus President Trump. But Congressman Hurd, you're gonna get up there and just bash Trump? So. And again, it's not like, oh, I disagree with his policy. It's not like, oh, I think he could do a better job. It's basically, insinuating Trump's a criminal, basically, in my opinion, from Governor Christie. Congressman Hurd, it sounded, you have, it's a very negative take. And if that's what you have to say with this administration, then on the Republican side, that's what you offer as an alternative. Then please get out of this race, because you are a joke, because this is not the time for any of that. I don't know who's telling you what to do. I don't know. I don't know what you count. And again, I have to say it. What did I say last week? And again, if you want to be ahead of the game, you listen to the show. Look at Vivek, because Vivek is now running number 2 in Ohio. Oh, he's from Ohio. Yeah, but he's number 2 player. Ahead of the super Governor DeSantis. And Governor DeSantis is a phenomenal governor for Florida. He really is. Now, again, I've criticized, as I did last week, and I don't want to replay last week's show, where that campaign has been and what's been going on. And I think there's been some adjustments, and we're going to talk about that. But Paul, I would like to say I was shocked. I wasn't totally shocked, but maybe dumbfounded is maybe the better word, because I don't know what Governor Christie or Congressman Hurd are thinking about this. We got about 2 minutes to the break. Of course, we'll talk about it on the other end of the break. But what do you make of what happened in Iowa and over the weekend with that kind of language and positioning?
Yeah, and I think we should spend some more time after the break talking about Vivek, because there's a lot there, and it's interesting. Right. As far as Christie and Hurd, those two in particular. Look, if I remember correctly, in 2016, Christie basically did a real, I don't want to call it a smear job, but he did really well in the debate against Rubio. Like, he did something where he kind of shut Rubio down, if I remember that correctly. So I think that there are people who are not Trump fans who maybe are hoping that he can do that to Trump this time around. I think that seems to be, in my opinion, his task or goal is take on Trump and try to do well in New Hampshire. He seems to be very focused on New Hampshire, whereas right now, like Governor DeSantis is spending a tremendous amount of time in Iowa. Chris Christie's focus seems on New Hampshire. Will Hurd, a lot of people don't even know who he is. So it's like, who is this guy? And what you said is so true. It's not just the last 3 years. People feel like the previous 8 years before that, there were things. Look, the Russia stuff with Trump. People felt like,
it's crazy.
What's going on here?
Listen, we're going to talk about it in the next break. Hang in there. This is the John D. Villarreal Radio Show right here on Newstalk 1040 AM. We'll be right back at you. Stay tuned. Okay. Okay, Paul and I are getting into it right now. We're going to talk about more of this on the next segment of the break here. We'll probably be back at about 4:34, so we got about 5 minutes right here. I think I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit. I'm going to try it. I mean, I like the angle, but I might want to adjust that a little bit. And, you know, I want to carry this on for the next segment here, and we'll talk about this, and we'll see how far we go, because there's a lot that's been going on with the campaign. We really needed to really get into it. But I also want to talk about some business stuff. There's a lot that's going on with Twitter, which is now X. There's some things going on in automotive. There's a lot of other things going on out there, so we'll talk about that as well. So I'm going to put myself on mute here and try to make a few adjustments. I'll be right back. So if you're watching this on replay, if you're watching it live, hang in there till 4:35. If you're watching on replay, you may want to just go forward for about 5 minutes here. Okay, we got about a minute and a half here till we're back on, so just stay tuned.
First.
We're still going to be talking about politics here. We're still joined by Paul at Villarreal, and we are going to get into what's going on with the campaign and why we've seen these things. We're seeing things start to heat up now, so I'm going to check the audio here in a second.
Get your seat.
probably about 45 seconds out. Okay, what's going on? Hey, it's me, John D. Villarreal, here on the John D. Villarreal Show on Newstalk 1040 AM, right here in the greater Tampa Bay area. We're talking about so many things right now, so many things, and it's unbelievable. We're still joined by Paul at Villarreal. We're talking about what happened last weekend, and really, this is July 31st, end of the month here in July, and the month is going on. The year is going very, very fast, Paul, and I have to talk about what's happening with this. With what's happening in Iowa, and I will reference you rather, to, the Chris Christie on State of the Union, quote, at the first debate, Trump will be, quote unquote, out on bail. I mean, like what are we doing here? And like you said, it's Chris Christie, like the tough guy, is his whole role to attack Trump and throw him off. Like, dude, nobody cares, bro, nobody cares. Like that's over, dude. Like, whatever you like, I don't know, like you said, what you thought you did with Rubio there, but that's over. Chuck Todd here on Real Clear Politics, a clip of video there. People don't know, quote, people don't, I don't know if this is a quote, but this is the headline. Headline, Chuck Todd, people don't yet fully comprehend that Trump will be facing multiple trials during the 2024 primary. We don't care, dude. People don't care. Now, of course, if it was like something super crazy, ultra serious, this and that, I mean, as I said before, there's a very big misunderstanding, I believe, in the mainstream media with President Trump and what's going on there. People are like, oh, it's a personal connection. It's an emotional connection. It's not about an emotional connection. It's not about an emotional connection with Trump. I mean, for some people, maybe it is. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for everybody, and I'm not speaking for everybody. But I'm just giving the analysis that I see right here. It's about trust. People trust President Trump to actually go in there and do policies that are going to benefit the majority of Americans, and particularly, the policies that Republican voters, the base of them, really, really want. It's about trust on that. Why do people maybe not care what's going on with Trump? Because they see what's happening with the justice system, if you will, and they see what's happening. We've got, this thing going on with Devin Archer up on Capitol Hill. We've got the Hunter Biden thing. We've got the Hunter Biden plea deal that fell apart. I mean, it's all getting really crazy. I mean, Paul, don't you think it's this contrast? It's almost like, and then you had, Jonathan Capehart from the Washington Post saying, oh, it's totally different from Hillary's emails and stuff like that. What? I mean, we've had the stuff with the Corvette there in Delaware. We've had, the Biden library. We've had, the server in the bathroom there for the Clintons. We've had Sandy Berger with the socks. We've had so many different things on Democrat side, but they just keep doing. I mean, every time something happens, it's more charges against Trump and more trials, and it's nonsense, dude. It's nonsense, and people are like, it just seems. I'm not alleging anything, but it seems like it's anything and everything to not let the American people elect Trump. What do you think of that?
Yeah, there's a lot of people who feel that that's it. In fact, I see people saying on Twitter and other places, look, we have to support Trump or else we're letting the Department of Justice and other entities pick our candidate. And they're upset by that, and they think that that's not appropriate, and a lot of people agree with that. So I think that that's right. And look, you and I were around. We remember Bill Clinton's presidency and Senator Hillary Clinton. One of the things that happened during that period of time was what was known as Clinton scandal fatigue. And that term is used a couple of different ways, but the way that I remember it being used was there were so many issues brought up about them. Travelgate, Whitewater, all these different things, that at a certain point, people don't listen anymore. If they listen to the first four things, they're not going to listen to the fifth thing. That's where Trump's at right now. it's like, oh yeah, right, you guys are charging them with this. Like, people aren't paying attention anymore. And one thing I will add, a really good pollster that I follow on Twitter, his name is Rich Barris, at People's Pundit. He said that the more that Trump is indicted, the more relatable he seems to people. So more people are coming to him, not just because they're rallying around him, but they're just like, wow, that guy has real problems like I have real problems. And so the strategy isn't working if the goal is, okay, let's just throw everything we can at this guy legally, and maybe that'll diminish him, or people will think, he could be put in prison or something. So,
yeah, and it's just like, and here's the thing: this is not a normal campaign, because this isn't a normal situation. Because again, we've been in a very anormal, a very almost bizarro land politically for like 5, 6, some would say even beyond, since Trump started to run in 2015, if you will. The way the media has been, the way the politics have been, the way the parties have been crazy. We've had Russia collusion, which turned out to be a hoax. We've had this nonstop gotcha journalism. We've had all these different, the lawfare. It's out of control, dude. It's out of control. So to have the position that we want to go, we want to get away from Trump. Like, dude, there's so many Americans that don't want this. They don't want this. And we've had Florida's congressional delegation stepping up. Congressman Byron Donalds, Congressperson Anna Paulina Luna. We've seen a lot of people stepping up. And in fact, there was, I don't know if it was, I don't think it was Senator Hawley. I think it was someone else. I have to double check. But it was something like after this latest, revisement or adding on or whatever it is of the Mar-a-Lago charges by the special prosecutor out there, Jack Smith, was like, hey, we got to respond to this. This is like, it raises a lot of questions. Like, what are we doing here? Think about that. You've got the justice system of a sitting president going after the number one presidential candidate. And it's not someone that has a chance. It's someone now, with all these other candidates in the race, has repeatedly is scoring over majority, over 50% in the polls. Nationally, you've got Trump right here, Real Clear Politics. You've got Trump at 54, DeSantis at 18.3. DeSantis has been cratering, dude. You've got in Iowa, Trump at 50%. In New Hampshire, he's at 41%. Nationally, it's just unbelievable. And then when you look at the general election matchup, Trump's unelectable, and the independents and Trump can't. When are Republicans going to realize Trump can't win the election? Really? Because that's kind of funny, because in the general election matchup by Real Clear Politics, you've got Biden over DeSantis by 1.9% in the composite of polls, and you've got Trump above. Biden is leading Trump by 0.9%, okay? And he does even much better against Vice President Harris. So this idea that Trump can't win independents, this idea, you've got is I think very incorrect. And then you've got Trump that is leading by a lot, Paul, by a lot against all the other candidates. And I can say that it looks very unseemly, because here's the thing. You may say it looks... Here's what I'm saying. I'm not sitting here and, listen, I'm not on the jury. I'm not giving any legal advice or anything like that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just a talk show host when I'm doing this show. But what I'm saying clearly is, look, dude, and people, the totality and the enormity of all these charges against Trump, and yet we had a plea deal, ostensibly, if I believe the media reports, against Hunter Biden, that was going to absolve him of basically, there was maybe potentially, I think, some analysis out there that maybe it was going to he would be absolved of any kind of wrongdoing. Now, there was discussion about that, and that's maybe why and the judge asked some questions, and that's maybe why the plea deal fell apart. I don't know. I'm just going off of my analysis as a talk show host of what I heard in the media, and you have to take that with a grain of salt, okay? But if that's the case, against this massive amounts of information out there, we were told the laptop was fake, Russian disinformation. It wasn't. You have all these different things that are alleged as part of that information out there, and along with all kinds of other, we've got whistleblowers from the IRS stepping forward. We've got Hunter Biden, business associate whistleblowers that are stepping forward. We've got all kinds of stuff out there of serious. And the allegations are up to bribery, dude. All kinds of different. There's all kinds of different things that are alleged, and IRS and all, some serious stuff. I remember how many. You remember how I'm talking too fast. Let me slow down. So many things. That's the problem with being a super genius. The brain works a little too fast sometimes. Paul, let me slow it down. You remember when the press was going on for years and years and years of how they wanted President Trump's tax returns, and they finally got them. Somehow they were leaked out. Somehow, forget about privacy, forget about the laws. Somehow the tax returns get out, and it was nothing. It was crickets. And here we have a situation where Hunter Biden is being paid tens of thousands of dollars for artwork, $50,000 plus to sit on boards per month. Where he didn't have experience in oil and Burisma and all kinds of other stuff. We see these hedge fund deals or venture, whatever they are. These massive deals in where? Ukraine and China and all these other different places out there. And we talked about how many people the Trump campaign or the Trump cabinet or not cabinet, excuse me, the Trump administration or Trump campaign were hit up with the FARA, right? And the foreign agent registration, and yet you've got all this, these foreign business things and dealings and 10% to the big guy and all these types of stuff. And listen, I don't want to do whataboutism, and I don't want to criminalize politics, and we need to get away from all this, but it seems so this is where I'm coming with all this. I want your comments. It seems so unseemly to the average American. I'm someone that's super experienced and very educated and very smart and have run campaigns and all that type of stuff. It just seems so over the top and never ending, this legal lawfare against Trump and these pundits out there, talking about out on bail and he's going to be in jail, whatever they're saying. How do you know, dude? What do you know and how do you know? It's just so voluminous on the Trump side, and up till now, they've found and produced nothing. They've contorted themselves in these legal. Hey, how come we're not talking about D.A. Bragg anymore? What happened to that case? And the frog marching and the perp walk and all this type of stuff. And it's let's try Southern District of New York and let's try Manhattan. That doesn't work. Okay, well now we're talking about the defamation case. Okay, now we're talking about Atlanta. Oh, now we're talking about Mar-a-Lago, and it's on and on and on. Meanwhile, we've got Devin Archer up in Capitol Hill. We've got Hunter Biden laptop. We've got disinformation. We've got Twitter files. We've got Facebook files. We've got all this stuff. And it seems that if you take it all together, Paul, that it's just it seems very political. And we have more and more political targeting, more and more members of Congress, people that are established that are saying just that. And I think that when the average American voter, to buttress what you said, to support what you said, the more they do that, the stronger Trump's going to get politically, in my opinion. What's your take?
Is that you hear all the time now in regards to that is two-tier justice system. And that's what a lot of people feel like is going on. Why would you, as you said, why would Hunter Biden get a plea deal, and yet you're going super, aggressively, apparently, against a former president? Look, you went to law school. You know the concept of prosecutorial discretion. They don't have to do this. And as you said, they're not doing some of these things. They're not going for a Foreign Agent Registration Act against Hunter Biden, as far as I know. But they did it to Michael Flynn. They did it to other people that were involved with Trump. So this is selective. It does appear to be selective, and I think that's what a lot of people feel that. Now, look, there's plenty of people on the other side, and you and I both know some of those people who think this is great and Trump's, the rule of law and da-da-da-da, but you've never seen this before in this country. This has never happened before. So it's just like you said, we're in an abnormal situation here. And because of that, it's people don't know how to react because it's different. One of the things also you mentioned about the time Trump was in office, not only do we have Russia, we also had resist. So it's like he wasn't even supposed to be allowed to govern, apparently, even though the Republicans controlled all, Congress and the presidency.
Yeah, let me step in for a second. Let me step in real quick just to support what you're saying and frame it for the audience out there on Newstalk 1040 AM, Greater Tampa Bay area, as well as YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's beyond that, right? It is, and I've talked to people very established, very smart, very educated, whatever like that, and even people, members of our family. Trump's guilty of what? Well, he's just guilty. Well, of what? Well, it's just anything to get Trump. It's the Trump derangement syndrome, the TDS, right? So it's almost any legal means to get Trump is acceptable. Whatever stops him from being president is acceptable. Not only acceptable, we need it to quote unquote save democracy. What? How's that democracy? Like if you dude, it's almost like they say in former Soviet Union, right? Fire me or whatever. I think I can't remember. Dostoevsky. I'm probably getting it wrong, and I apologize out there. I'm sure the audience will correct me. Show me the man. I'll show you the crime. Right? It's like this guilty first. We'll figure out the crime or whatever later, at least politically mentality. But that is on the heels of resist. He can't be president. We got to stop him. He's illegitimate. How? You look at it. It's what some of these people say. Look at what Hillary Clinton, or Secretary Clinton was saying. And I'm not sure which title is better. I think Secretary is a little bit better than Senator, but Senators Clinton, Secretary Clinton. I'm going with Secretary Clinton. That was the last office, and I want to be respectful. But so he's an illegitimate president, and we had the resist hats, and we had the hats out there, and we had the March on Washington, and all this type of stuff, and that's okay. That wasn't an insurrection. So we have this resist. And basically, you had, it was almost like he didn't even have a full presidency, quite frankly. And so then you have what's going on now, and you add it all up. It's like, what is going on here? And that's when people talk about the two-tier justice system and the deep state and the GOPE and the rhinos and the never Trump and all that type of stuff, which is what brings us back full circle. And I want to talk about some other stuff next hour, but we'll still talk about some of these things as well, because this is at the heart of all of it, and why people like Vivek and others, and J.D. Vance and Senator Hawley and Byron Donalds and Congressperson Donalds and Congressperson Anna Paulina Luna here in the Western Florida area are doing well, is because people are tired of it. People understand what's going on right now. People understand when you kick OAN off of satellite dishes and stuff like that. When you have the censorship campaign that now we've revealed, we knew it was Twitter. Now we reveal with Facebook. People are sick of this, Paul, and they know what's going on here. That this is you want to talk about a threat to democracy. You take all this together. The elites have to let people vote for whom they want to vote for. We have to be able to speak freely. Elon Musk is fighting this. I know next hour we're going to talk about Twitter and what's happening out there and the change to X and what he's going through. I know you've done a lot of research out there, but people understand how important this election is. And then when you have people like Will Hurd, Congressman Hurd, or former Congressman Hurd, get out there and slam Trump so viciously, and former Governor Christie do that, we're like, what planet are you on? Why are you running the Republican side? And then you have, and we feel bad. We feel really bad. I feel bad. I don't know what happened. The freezing in the camera there of Minority Leader McConnell.
Yeah.
What is that? You've got Senator Fetterman, you've got Senator McConnell, you've got President Biden. Like, dude, what's going on, Paul? You understand what I'm saying? When you put it all together, people are like, look, here's the bottom line. This country has real problems right now. We have real things that need to be addressed. If they are addressed like they were with President Trump and Governor DeSantis tremendously here in the state of Florida, great things can happen. If they're not, you can end up like, look at California, look at San Francisco, look at Philadelphia. We don't want that. We don't want another replay of the last 4 years if you're on the Republican side. So you need to be clear about that. If your mission is to stop Trump instead of fixing problems, people don't want to hear it on the Republican side. That's my opinion, Paul. What do you think of that?
I think that's correct. And just what you were saying about the troubles that are going on in the nation right now, YouGov, which is a polling outfit, they just did a thing saying that 40% of adults in the country right now have $1,000 or less in savings. People don't have money. They don't have time to think about, all these different things. And so when they see, I saw a woman on Twitter yesterday who was a single mother, and she's like, look, all I know is that when Trump was in office, things were better for me. And that's what they care about. They don't care about the ideological stuff, whatever. It's like, was my life better? And for a lot of people, it was better. And I think I think what you're saying is correct. And just for the audience, I want to say the GOP is the GOP establishment. And it's important when John and I will differentiate between the establishment Republicans and more of like the MAGA or the base Republicans. And there's always tension between those two. Certainly that's around Trump. And we also saw it with the Tea Party, where it's the establishment, they want to kind of control things, and the base is like, no, we don't want you to control things. We want to control it more. So that there's a lot of tension between those two factions, and it's definitely playing out right now.
No doubt about it, and I'm glad that you pointed that out. I mean, again, if you want to understand some of this, I mean, go rent or go look at Caddyshack, right? And you had Rodney Dangerfield, that was the big money, but new money, and then you had the judge there that was the old money, and they didn't want to let Rodney in, and Rodney was so gauche, and and again, it's Great Gatsby, it's all these things. I mean, we've seen this story time and time and time again, and it's like, dude, I mean, it's, and people decry populism. What is populism? Populism is doing things that are popular with the majority of people. Now, you don't want, the tyranny of democracy. This goes back to Socrates and stuff like that, and Plato, Aristotle, all that type of stuff. If I remember my political theory correctly, right, and with Athens and all that type of stuff, where you basically can vote to take someone's house. I mean, no, you don't want that, right? So that's why you have a constitutional republic. And I don't want to get super academic here, but at the same time, like, you can't have this thing that's totally divorced from any relationship with popular sentiment. And when you have some of these issues that are 60-40, 70-30, 80-20 that have gone on for decades, if not half a century, without being resolved, then you have to ask yourself, why is that? Like, what's going on here? And you're seeing that. You've seen that globally. There's been a total disconnect between the elites and the ruling class, if you will, and going back to Code Villa, with the author on that kicked off that article and that terminology, if you will, at least in a mainstream on conservative circles out there, and the regular voting person and the population, the citizens, and that's a problem. That's a problem. That's a threat to legitimacy and all these things. And then you see two-tier justice. So this has to be addressed. This has to be addressed, and people have to. We want policies. I don't want to go left, right thing, and I don't want to spend this show or every show on this. But I think this last week it was so clear with these attacks on President Trump over the weekend by his own party, our own party, right? And the Hunter Biden, plea deal falling apart. You've got Devin Archer up on Capitol Hill. We had to talk about it. Next hour. We're going to talk about the bigger picture politically, but we're also going to talk about Twitter, Elon Musk. There's some business stories, a lot of other stuff going on out there. We'll be right back at you. Stay tuned. Next hour, John D. Villarreal Show here on Newstalk 1040 AM, Greater Tampa Bay Area. Stay tuned. Okay, so I'm going to put myself on mute. We're going to pick it up back probably about 5:06 is when we get back on the air. And I want to talk about Twitter next hour. We'll kind of wrap some of these other stuff up here a little bit. Talking about the polls, talking about, there's been some movement. There's been some different things with the state polls with Iowa. The DeSantis campaign has shifted. It's kind of interesting. So we're talking about that. And there's also some sort of back and forth between Governor DeSantis and Congressperson Byron Donalds. Love Byron Donalds. He's great. But I do sense that Governor DeSantis seems to be taking more control of the campaign. I talked about that last, we'll talk about that, right? We talked about that last week. And we also want to talk about Twitter. I want to talk about some business stories as well. Okay. So I will be back here probably a little bit earlier than 5:06.
Small space.
West Central Florida.
Okay, we got about a minute till we're live. About a minute till we're live.
Gulf winds.
Okay, we're almost back.
Want to support our troops. Dono.
What's going on? Newstalk 1040, Greater Tampa Bay area out there. What's up? It's the John D. Villarreal radio show and live here on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. Props to Bob White out there, an awesome general manager, one of the top automotive guys out there, people out there, in my opinion. A Mercedes GM with the great AutoNation store, no doubt about it. Appreciate you, Bob. Appreciate that comment there, and I will pick up the comments later on LinkedIn and Facebook as well. Hey, we're here with John. My name is John D. Villarreal, and you're listening to the John D. Villarreal radio show here on Newstalk 1040 AM, everywhere from Sarasota, Lakeland, Wesley Chapel, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Tampa Bay as well. And we're talking about the politics. We're talking about the Republican race. We're talking about all kinds of different things out there. And I want to get into really framing this up. We were joined by Paul Villarreal. We're still joined by Paul Villarreal. And we're talking about why Trump, but more importantly, and again, this is analysis. This is not advocacy. This is analysis. And one of the things that I want to talk about is, as we were talking about, is why. Why are these people going so negative on Trump in terms of former Governor Chris Christie or Congressperson Will Hurd? But also, why are some of these people running like Mayor Suarez? And again, I care way less about that. It's not so much about that, but if you're being super negative on Trump, who are you? In terms of again, if that's the most important thing, if that's your focus, sure, why you're better than Trump, great. Why you'll do a better job, great. What your policies are, great. But in terms of this super Trump's out on bail and Trump's disgraceful or whatever that it is, forget about it, dude. And then I don't even know. I mean, and DeSantis was out there in Salt Lake City, and is he connecting with Senator Romney, and Romney and Trump have had their back and forth. And again, this is what I'm pointing. We're super tired of the never Trump. And if your focus is never Trump in this situation, you're out of your mind, dude, on the Republican side, right? And so that's what I want to say about that. But let's spin it forward. And we'll touch on some of those themes, of course. Tell me, Paul, bring me up to speed, because I know you've been very into the news right now, and I've had a lot of things going on in my life over the weekend, but that's fine. But I'm always in touch as well. I want to kind of understand from your perspective, and I'll give my comments of where we are with the campaign, with some of the polls and stuff like that. Let's talk about that. Let's do a little bit of that check-in. But I also want to know specifically about the DeSantis campaign, looks like there's been some movement, some evolution there. So I want to know about those two things, and I want to talk about what's going on in Capitol Hill with the Devin Archer thing. So why don't you walk us through some of the news real quick on that?
Okay, let's start with the polls. Today, the New York Times put out their poll. They do a poll with Siena University, I believe, which is in New York. And the Republican primary was basically Trump 54, DeSantis 17. So that's a 37-point spread. And what they wrote up in the article accompanying the poll was, they said, at this point in time in a campaign, nobody has ever come back if they were down more than 20 points, while DeSantis is down almost double that. So that kind of gives you a sense of how difficult this is, or what kind of challenge he's facing right now. Now, we were talking about, that's the polls. You said DeSantis campaign, they have retooled and rebooted. The first thing they did was they cut a lot of staff, because they started figuring out that the burn rate was too high. You and I both know a lot about burn rate being in entrepreneurial stuff. The burn rate was way too much, even though they were taking in a lot of money. So they had to cut about a third of their staff. Now, they've also changed message for a significant, basically for all of the campaign up to this point, or maybe up until about a week ago. DeSantis was focused on, hey, the Florida blueprint, let's make Utah Florida, and this type of thing, as well as the cultural issues, anti-woke, and I'm fighting woke and that type of thing. And those were the two main things that he focused on. Well, the campaign put out a strategy memo, and it basically said, okay, look, we have to change things up. We need to talk about the economy. We need to talk about immigration. We need to talk about the border and so forth. So they are revising the message, which I think is absolutely imperative, because most people, people in Iowa don't know what the Florida blueprint is, and maybe they don't really care. They just want to know what is their blueprint. What is it for here? So that's happening right now. Also, there was a report in Rolling Stone magazine, I think it was yesterday, and it was basically Ed Rollins, who, is a Republican strategist, and I think he has had a lot of input into the DeSantis campaign, or at least helping it launch. He's frustrated. He doesn't think things are going well. He thinks that the campaign needs an overhaul and so forth. And donors are anonymously saying, look, we don't think this person should be in the campaign anymore. Maybe, don't do this. We're not happy that you kind of had a little bit of a back and forth with Congressman Donalds. So
right.
There's tension there.
Tell me about the Donalds thing, because that's very, very important. I don't want to get too into that. I think I know what it's about in terms of some of the curriculum stuff. But, but just like right. what is going on? And see, here's the thing. I'll say this real quick. Sorry, Paul. Congressman Donalds is phenomenal. I told you he was a star. Yeah. I've been saying he's a star. I think Anna Paulina Luna, Congresswoman Luna, and just in full disclosure, we're probably going to try to get both those people on the show. So I'll say that right now. I've already, before I even had the show, I reached out to one of their offices and stuff like that. And so I would say. Yeah, and again, we want to have Democrats, and we want to have independents. We want to have everybody on the show. We want to talk about. We want to talk to. That's part of the whole thing right there. We're so sick of all the super hyper partisanship, and everything's political and everything's crazy. Like, stop. We're sick of this. Now, and to that extent, Governor DeSantis, I think, is one of the greatest governors of all time, maybe of all time, in Florida, because he actually gave a little breathing space to parents, to businesses, to, citizens on all this woke stuff and shut down stuff and everything else. And that's super important. But, and I didn't follow it, and you may have, and just be careful on let's be careful on everything. We're on Newstalk 1040 AM right now. But I just saw a clip there, snippet, I'm like, that there was some back and forth, and I'm like, what are you doing, DeSantis? Like, I didn't know any more than that. But what is the kerfuffle there? What's going on?
Okay, So basically, Congressman Donalds, there had been some buzz about one particular aspect of the changed curriculum. And, some different people had said, well, what about this? And basically, of course, DeSantis is backing up his educational people who made the curriculum. And so he's going to back them up, and that was the position that he took. At some point in time, Congressman Donalds came out and said, look, I like the curriculum, but I don't like this one aspect of it. And so when he said that, the DeSantis campaign came out and said, hey, Congressman Donalds, you're saying the same thing that Vice President Harris said. So what are you? Are you a Democrat? Whatever. So it started like that. It started that way. And then other people got involved. Congressman Wesley Hunt, some other people got involved in it as well. And to Donald's credit, and I agree with you, he is awesome. I think he is amazing. I also think Luna is incredible. Donalds went on a show, and I can't remember which show it was. I think it was somewhere on Fox, and he was basically kind of tried to bury the hatchet. Like, look, the curriculum's good. It's just this one little thing. The DeSantis campaign said, oh, he walked it back. No, he didn't really walk it back, but he tried to flesh it out a little bit so that any of the bad feelings would go away. And look, that's, it's very savvy to do that. And so that's what happened. And apparently some of the donors were like, what are you doing? Why are you fighting with him? That's not what we want. As you and I both know, some of his donors have said they backed off, reportedly, because they didn't want to get into all the cultural stuff. And so it's like, hey, don't get into that too much. And so that seemed to be what took place. And just coming back to what you said previously, and, you and I love this stuff. We live for this stuff. But as you said, we do want to get back to normal times, not where families are fighting over politics or you lose friends because of politics. For us, it's like, look, it's like a football game. Go play the game, and then after, go drink Kool-Aid together. Have fun. It's a fun competition, not, this unbelievably thing. So yeah, we want that. We do want Democrats on. We do want to hear everybody. Our purpose, even though both of us, I think, it's understood we're more conservative, is to offer all the opinions and talk about them to the audience of 1040 and to analyze them. What's happening? What's going on? What do you need to know as an audience member so that you're informed and so that you can make a decision? That's where we're coming from. And to do that, you have to hear from everybody. That's key.
Well, not only that, but I think what we've seen is that so much of the population there's been tremendous amounts of censorship, and a lot of people have been lied to. Okay, whether it's the 50 some odd former intelligence, whatever, that signed the Russia collusion hoax thing, if I remember correctly, or the some of the pandemic, quote unquote misinformation that wasn't misinformation, or I just saw something else about there's all kinds of stuff. There's been so many lies out there, dude, that have been going on for a long time. And as we said before, I had a show, that was on, wasn't on Newstalk 1040, was on when I did one of the live streams or something like that, or maybe it was, I don't know. Maybe we did talk about Newstalk 1040, which is how do you know what you know? There's so many things out there that are, and listen, and I want to touch on this as well. Not now. Probably next week.
Yeah.
I have to really set it up right, because there's just so much that I want to get into here, and I'm going to lay a bunch of other stuff on the table. I just saw something about Amazon. I want to talk about that. We're going to talk business here in a second. But we were, and I wanted to have my sister on, and she's like, oh no, she don't want that. That's fine.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I love it.
No, I know. Our family, we lived through divorce, and my mom was a big feminist. Since kind of maybe reformed some of that thinking. I don't want to get into that. We love our mom and everything like that, but there's a lot of conversations out there about toxic masculinity and relationships, and I'm seeing a lot of these relationship coaches on YouTube, and my wife's like, what are you watching? Why are you watching all this type of stuff? Like, we're married. Like, I said, I know, but there's something going on here, and I'm studying it, and it's things that I've been saying for a long time. I think that it's not, and I'm not, and I know Andrew Tate talks about that, Fresh and Fit talk about that, Just Pearl's talked about that. She's got into it with, a little bit with, Piers Morgan, stuff like that. And again, I'm not endorsing anyone, or I'm not ready to make a comment yet, but I will say this. I lived through all this stuff. So have you, Paul. And I think that, I'm blessed that I figured it out. I really did. I really am. And I always sort of knew what I wanted. Not to brag or boast, but I'm married to a superwoman, like literally, like a physician from Israel, and he's got 3 advanced degrees, just like I've got 3 advanced degrees. And again, I'm not ready to lay it out here. I'm just trying to do a little highlight, a preview, if you will, because this is going to be a whole show. It might even be a series of shows, and it's important. It's important to the Newstalk 1040 audience out there, and I'm going to tell you why. Because all this relates. Because we've had an assault on the American way of life. We've had an assault on relationships and the family. And we've seen that in the schools with Governor Youngkin. We've seen that with Governor DeSantis. We've seen that in Florida. We've seen that across the country. We've seen that all over the place. And we've seen this even in the military. We need to have strong families. We need to have strong men, strong women, right? And I do think that there's a lot that we can learn from traditional models that have been out there for hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of years. But there's also, and this is kind of my theory, and I haven't fully articulated, and this is part of the genius, if you will, of my talent, being a super genius, and part of the curse of it as well, in terms of I can see things. I am so good at spotting trends and sort of future casting, if you will. Not good enough to. I don't do the lottery or anything. Obviously, I haven't all figured out, but I've done enough. But I can see things sometimes before I can even fully articulate it. But I think that there's this desire to be in the middle, if you will. This less partisanship, but it's not in the traditional sort of purple strategies, like mushy GOP way. It's almost like taking things from more of the ends out there. Like there's things that I think that when we go forward, what's going to be salient, what's going to be workable politically, is going to be some stuff that's from the left and modern relationships and modern stuff like that. I think it's also going to be stuff from the right, and more so from the right. Obviously, I'm conservative, almost libertarian. Freedom, liberty, capitalism, all this type of stuff, traditional relationships, whatever, with a modern twist and stuff like that. So I think there has to be, and again, this is going to be a whole show, and I don't know, I may even have to do a live stream. I may have to do hours of this. I mean, I have to really think about how I want to approach this. But you have a generation or generations of young people and even older. Look at, I don't want to name names, but look at Maureen Dowd. Look at a lot of people that have just, and again, let's move aside from any specific name. Just generally, you have generations that have been ruined by this leftist, by this heavy duty, people call it third wave feminism or whatever it is. And just to be clear, I don't want anything taken out of context. Anyone can do anything. I'm all for everyone. Freedom, peace, love, opportunity. It's up for everyone. Absolutely. And you want to be an astronaut, president, do whatever you want to do. No problem. Absolutely. That's not what we're talking about. What we are saying, though, is that some people have said that men have been reduced to nothing but a wallet. And you see the laws, and there's just so much to get into here. And there's a lot of things but with the quote unquote manosphere stuff that I disagree with. I disagree with some of the positioning. I think it's a little not sophisticated enough, if you will. And again, I'm not criticizing anyone in particular, but I think there's a lot of nuance here that we can't get into right now. But the reason I put this on the table is two main things, right, that we have to think about. And this is where I'm going to bring it. I have 5 minutes. I'm going to have to bring this more. And this is, again, how my brain works. And we did this, Professor Yu, and try to make it. if you don't have a constitutional republic, if you don't have a constitution, if you don't have free rights and individual liberties and free speech and all these crucial key things, you don't have a constitutional republic. And part of that with Alexis de Tocqueville and engage in informed citizenry, right? If you don't have a strong family, if you don't have kids being raised right, if you don't have good education, if you don't have these strong family units, then it's hard to have a good society. These things go hand in hand. And I know Ben Shapiro and some other people talk about these things out there and whatnot. And I think there's been just a massive propaganda and disservice that has been perpetrated on generations out there. I can't get into it too much here but I just wanted to put that out there because that's a key component that is often overlooked out there. And what I'm saying is the average person in Appalachia, in Florida, in Texas, in Kansas, in Wyoming, in Arizona, it just feels whether it's the father, the mother, the kids, just under assault economically, socially, culturally, all these types of things. But I also think that there's an important message about being able to move forward and including and being very inclusive with everyone. Am I making sense here, Paul? I want to give you some time to talk before the next break. And in the next segment, I'm definitely going to put some economic and business topics on the table. But I thought this is an important point and part of the message it's part of the story that's not fully told out there in the political circles.
Yeah, you're making plenty of sense. And just another term, and look, there's plenty of people in the audience that know this, but as far as I know, you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, a constitutional republic is basically ensuring the rights of the minority against just a pure democracy where the majority gets whatever they want. Well, the minority
Correct.
has to be protected. And that's what the constitutional republic is, like the Bill of Rights. You have a right to this, you have a right to this. No matter what is voted on or whatever the majority wants, you still have your rights, if that's what I understand. The second thing I wanted to say, you mentioned, how do people know what they know? And I think that's something that is really important today, because now you have people going into what they refer to as silos of information. If you get all of your information from one side or the other, you don't know really what's going on. And I think that we have both encountered, and we've discussed this, people who are very intelligent people, but their information sources are questionable. And so even though they think they know everything, but they really don't know a lot of things. And so that's a real problem right now. And I know that President Obama has brought that up before, and I agree with him about that, although I might not agree with him on the solution to that. But
let me say something
I can tell you right now. Yeah.
Sorry, let me just say a couple things real quick on that. And that is this. We can talk about that with success, too, because I didn't want to go super hard on all these things need to be discussed, is what I'm saying. I didn't want to go super hard on entrepreneurship and money and success and all that and forget about politics and don't talk about that and don't talk about family and don't talk about culture and don't talk about anything. Listen, I know so many people that are so successful. I like I said, I had a list somewhere where I've either personally met or been one step away. Like I know the brother or the whatever from more billionaires than probably most people ever. I mean, unless you're a billionaire, or whatever like that. It's not about that. It's not a flex. What I'm saying, I got to be very quick here. If you have money but you don't have a family life, are you successful? If you have money but you are confused and brainwashed by the matrix, are you successful? If you have money but you haven't experienced things and you don't talk to people and you're in your silo, are you successful? Those are really important questions. Right? I mean, you could be in the matrix. You can have your money. You can do your thing, but then you have no family. You have no legacy. You have no connection. You have no knowledge. You went 75, 80, 100 years, and you were totally like you believed in the propaganda, whatever it is. These are things we need to talk about. I am here supporting you, the Newstalk 1040 audience right here. You're doing the John D. Villarreal Show here on Newstalk 1040 AM. Last segment coming up. Stay tuned. Okay, we're rolling. So it's tough because I know Paul wants to say a lot and I want to say a lot. And as usual, I'm putting like all kinds of topics on the table here. But look, that's the way, because it all relates, and you have to see that. And it's really like when you watch my show, you really can't watch one show. You have to watch like a bunch of shows, and the themes will come out. And so we have to address all these things. But again, when you have a society that protects your constitutional rights and gives you the right to be who you are and gives you the space to do that, then those other things fall in line. There's a lot that relates here. Anyway, I won't save it for the show, but I'm going to take a little break here, get my thoughts together. We're definitely going to talk about some business. There's some Amazon stuff out there, some Twitter stuff out there. There's some other things out there. So yeah, it's an interesting conversation. So we're going to continue it.
I have researched
Okay, we got about 30 seconds here.
Remember the
What's going on, Newstalk 1040 audience? John D. Villarreal right here on the John D. Villarreal radio show. Last segment of July 2023 right here. July 31st, 2023, 5:35 p.m. right here on Newstalk 1040 AM audience. Everywhere from Sarasota, Wesley Chapel, Lakeland, Tampa Bay, St. Pete, and all over the greater Tampa Bay area, and also live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. We're still talking to Paul at Villarreal, and the message I was trying to make out there is a few things. And it relates to so many different shows, and I'll wrap it all up very quickly because I want to get into some business stuff here. I want to talk about, Twitter, now X, and I also want to talk about Ford losing money on EVs. I want to talk about Amazon. There's all kinds of stuff we want to talk about. But it's basically this. What's the whole point of life, right? I mean, that's an existential thing. But, I mean, it's like, is it good to have money if your family's ruined? Is it good to have money if you're by yourself? Is it good to have money if you've been snowed by the mainstream media and the Matrix and all that stuff? Is it good to have money if you have to be a sellout and you don't have your constitutional rights and all these types of things? I mean, sure, money is important. The other thing I'd say about relationships is anybody can do anything. I've seen relationships where all kinds of different things work, but you have to understand, particularly if you have a family. It's almost like a company, right? There's certain kinds of and that's why I sort of disagree with some of the manosphere stuff. Like, again, I cannot get into this right now because it's just too much to go into it, but that's part of why I'm hesitancy of getting involved, because I'm like, I don't totally agree with some of this. And I think, I have a little bit of a more of a sophisticated spin on it. And, I'm married. I've been married for quite some time. A lot of people that are talking in that space right now are not married. And I'm not saying that doesn't mean, it's great to hear all viewpoints and that's great. I'm not saying that should bar or preclude anyone, but being married for quite some time to a very strong, successful woman, it gives you a different perspective. And having a child gives you a different perspective, gives you a different experience, right? And I would say within a family that it's like a business. There's certain jobs, if you will, things that need to be done, right? I mean, you have to have some, we need some money, and we have to, take care of the kid and then get the kid to school and all these types of things that need to be done, if you will. So it's no different than, it is different, but I mean, obviously like a company, if you have a company and then you have to do certain things that you need to do in a company, like you have to have sales, and you have to have marketing, and you have to have products, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so that doesn't mean you run your family like a company. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that you have to, again, this is way too complicated. I do not want to be misinterpreted or taken out of context or anything like that. But I am saying that family is super important. Relationships are super important, and it's important to get those things right. And there were things that were working for a long, long, long time. And now if you change everything, as we've seen the last 5-8 years, if you build back better and you change everything, you might kind of mess some things up along the way. Or that some things might need to be tuned and stuff like that. Similarly, we had a country that has been doing amazing, right? The shining city on the hill, and has done amazingly for over, what is it? We're getting close to, I'm going to get my math wrong here, like 250 plus years. I can't even, I have to do my math here from going back to 1776 and all that. And now they're trying to, change things up there. And we talked to Professor Yu a few weeks ago about, the Supreme Court decisions, how that's sort of put a break on some things like that. But I wanted to just put that out there. Now, meanwhile, we've got some things happening. I did want to talk about business, and we don't have too much time, so we got to get right into that. There's things happening with Twitter right now. Yeah, with 247 years. Okay, so we're coming up on 250 here pretty soon. Paul, what is happening with Twitter? And I'm seeing some things out there where, maybe there's rumors that hey, that maybe X might, with Twitter now X might get out of San Francisco. What's up with Twitter?
Yeah, look, as you said, Twitter is now officially X. That is what it is. They've taken away the birds when you go on there. Everything is an X, and that ties into Elon. Years ago, made a company. I think it's like a financial or like electronic payment something that was also called X. And so I think eventually he wants to roll everything into each other, and this is the first step to that. Now, what's going on is in San Francisco, when he rebranded to X, he wanted to change the signage that was on the building, and he started doing it. And then the city was like, "Hey, you don't have a permit, or do you have a permit for the equipment to do this?" And so he started running into that issue. After that, he put up on the top of the building, and people can look this up. It's easy to find. A huge, I guess it's steel, a huge, enormous X that had flashing lights. Like it was like unbelievable. I mean, something you don't see every day. But apparently, the city wasn't happy about that either. And a couple hours ago, I saw a video of the X being taken down. But you said about San Francisco, and what is he thinking about it? Elon said yesterday, I believe it was, he said, look, a lot of people bring up, do you want to move out of San Francisco? Do you want to move out of San Francisco? And it's like, no. When you have to, you'll know who really cares about you or really stands by you when things are tough. It's like, we don't want to move out of San Francisco. I'm going to stay in San Francisco. So that's really interesting. Look, but as you and I know, and I wanted to bring this up before, both of us spent a long time in the Bay Area of California, which is San Francisco and the Silicon Valley and everything. And it's really degraded in some ways. Like San Francisco, the city has really had a lot of problems. A number of companies have just moved out because things are too difficult there right now. And I'm sure that Elon, in his heart of hearts, in my opinion, remembers the greatness and how good it is there, and still the Valley's good. And I'm sure he wants to help bring that back. And so I respect him for that. I respect him for that, even though it would be easy for him to go to Texas or go to Florida or wherever. It would cost less and all of that. But I think as somebody who came up in the Valley like he did, I think he wants to help out. And I respect that. I respect that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you, now, very quickly, is I want to put some other stuff on the table, but I don't want to be remiss in not allowing you an opportunity to speak on this. Did you want to comment very quickly on any of the stuff with the relationship stuff or any of the stuff that I said in the last segment?
Yeah, look, I think, as you said, anybody can do whatever they want, in our opinion, as long as it's moral and legal and ethical. I don't have any problem with anybody doing anything. But as you said, if you have a vast change in roles or routines in a very short period of time, that's going to be hard for people to adjust to. You mentioned earlier somebody who, we won't say the name again, but somebody who works for the New York Times who, kind of missed their chance to get married and have kids. And she's said at certain times, like, man, maybe I'm free and I get to do whatever I want and everything, but, and that's what happens if you tell people these things.
Yeah, sorry, I'll say this real quick. Look, I've seen it. I've seen, in whether it's in automotive space, I've seen it in law startups. I've been around a lot of money, and people on all sides that just will prioritize careers over family or having a family or everything else, and later on they regret it. I've talked to so many people that are like just shell shocked and like, what did I do? I missed my kids' games, or I wasn't there, or I was the absent parent, or what? And it's devastating. And things you regret, and it's the old saying, right? You're never gonna on your deathbed if you have a chance to, get there, right? I mean, you're not going to regret spending that last deal, or spending another, selling that last car, or that last dollar, or that last product, or whatever it is. Of course, you want to chase greatness. That's fine, but and I think a lot of people, particularly with the pandemic, have reevaluated and say, what am I doing with my life? And we see this again. This is going back. We're live on LinkedIn, going back to the office stuff and return to, and work-life balance. There's people that I know that are starting their own law firms that want to work remotely. And there's this ongoing conversation that's going on out there. And, never forget that you're a human being. Okay. And if you don't have, look, if you don't have freedom and freedom of thought and freedom of speech and you don't know what the truth is, what do you have? If you don't have family, what do you have? If you don't have good relationships, what do you really have? How successful are you? I know people that had or have tremendous money in the bank, but they've been, never been married, or they've been married 2, 3, 4, 5 times. I'm not here to judge anybody, but as children of divorce, it's not easy, right? And again, this is a much longer conversation. And the only reason I even put this on the table, because I think it is missed. It is a missed part of the conversation. But the fact that this stuff is blowing up, if you will, on the internet shows that there is a real need. People understand intrinsically. And this is when people misplace this with the emotional connection to Trump. People understand on the Republican side and the conservative side and the libertarian side, whatever like that there's something wrong here. They can look at what's happening with Devin Archer, at what's happening in the mainstream media. They know when they're being lied to. They know when they're being lied to about health issues. They know when they're being lied to about political issues. They know when there's a two-tier justice system. They know when, hey, the relationship stuff's not working out here. That, some people are like, hey, we're all the good people to date at, or why am I not married, or why don't I have kids, or why is my life not working out, or hey, I want to live in the office, or whatever that it is. There's all these things late. We need to do a better job of talking to each other, of working together, of being honest, of being authentic, of being transparent. So when you have a politician like Donald Trump, like Vivek, to a larger degree, like Governor DeSantis, that's actually standing up and fighting for the individuals, so fighting for the middle class, for all the citizens, that resonates. Now, let's get that's all I want to talk about. We'll have to talk about that in other shows, and I'll think about how I want to approach that, but I think that's an important point right there. Now, let's put this on the table, Paul. Okay, talked about Twitter. Let's also talk about Amazon, because we're live on LinkedIn right now, on Facebook and YouTube. And here we go. This is by LinkedIn, right? By Kate Chapman, editor at LinkedIn News, updated an hour ago. Quote, Amazon doubles down on delivery. Quote, days before reporting second quarter earnings, Amazon said it will double the number of its same-day delivery warehouses in quote-unquote coming years. The company also noted it had quadrupled the number of packages delivered in the same day or within one day to 1.8 billion. That's amazing, dude. I mean, you see Amazon as an absolute powerhouse. And this sort of digital economy, this delivery, this immediacy, I mean, countervail that with the desire for a lot of corporations to come back to the office and getting the workforce back to the office and all that. I think staring down, this working and doing commerce and doing business from anywhere, or almost anywhere around the world, if you will, or a lot of places. How about this? You have a lot more. Let me revise and extend that. You have a lot more flexibility now in terms of doing business and getting deliveries and doing commerce than you used to. You also have AI coming on. You also have, all these different automation. You have a lot of things that are disrupting business. And I'll throw one more thing on the table right here. That is another thing. Like they're trying to go EV. But there's been some problems with that. First of all, Elon Musk, no less than Elon Musk, is just crushing in the EV market. And I did hear something now put on top here. So I think no less than the Ford CEO said that the advantage that Elon Musk has is so huge in terms of Tesla, because I think Tesla is roughly two thirds of all EVs that are sold in the U.S. or something like that. And Tesla, if they want to do an update, they can do an over-the-air update. Tesla owns all of it. Whereas other, traditional car manufacturers, if they want to do an update, they have all these other licensees that they have to, IP that they have to deal with. It's like, maybe it's Bosch that makes this, maybe it's who knows? All these chip makers or all these different things that they have to deal with in terms of getting things updated in their vehicles. Whereas it's a lot more seamless for Tesla. And when you have cars that are becoming much more like computers and technology and electronics and batteries, that provides a huge benefit and competitive advantage to Elon Musk and Tesla over there. But now I've got a headline right here from Fox Business by Andrea Vacciano. Quote, Ford set to lose $4.5 billion on electric vehicles this year, despite increased revenue, unquote. Listen, there's a lot of things happening out there. There's a lot of disruption. And the question is, how many of these companies that they're speeding towards EV, and now there's some just talk that, maybe you're going right off a cliff from a company perspective. I'm not alleging anything, but look, I mean, there's a lot of question marks out there from no less than the Toyota CEO. We've talked about it in different weeks. What do you make of Amazon? What do you make of EV? What do you make of some of these business stories, Paul?
Look, Amazon, I think a lot of people, there's kind of mixed feelings about it. I think Amazon is great, but it's made it challenging for local stores maybe to be able to stay afloat, or maybe even malls could be shut down because of how prevalent the online stuff is. At the end of the day, I think it's a good thing. It's much easier. It's very useful. I use it all the time. I think it's good. And so we're going to have to figure out how to balance that with local work as well. As far as the other issue, the EVs, as you said, and we've talked about this, the primary issue or at least what seems to be the primary issue, is there's not enough infrastructure. Specifically, there's not enough facilities for charging. And so if you don't have the facilities to charge, you can't make the cars. And so I believe the Ford executives said that essentially, and other executives have said the same thing. It's great if you have them. You got to be able to charge them. And what you said about Elon and the competitive advantage is 100% true. Elon will talk on Twitter, and he'll get feedback from people about, hey, we did this technological advance in Tesla, and now we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. You don't get you get very minimal of that in your standard EV cars from Ford or from other companies. They don't have the same level of tech, as you said. Elon loves that. He'll tinker with it constantly. So you're going to get that. And that's a massive advantage over everybody else. So it's interesting. And like I said, we talked earlier about the changes in relationships or whatever. We're seeing massive and quick changes in communities, in shopping, in these things. And look, it is challenging, or it can be challenging for people to kind of adjust to that and feel like they have kind of a rudder in the storm. And that's where somebody who's kind of steady or can kind of, feels like they're kind of pulling it together helps a lot. And I think I do think that's part of Trump's appeal. Not an emotional connection, but look, we still like things being done in that way and so forth. And that's a good way to do things, even though things are changing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, the rapidity of change continues to increase faster and faster. And, you can't be... So it's one thing to say, I lean into change, and there's the only thing constant is change, right? And so I like Silicon Valley. I like that whole pace, venture capital, everything like that, entrepreneurship. I'm all about it. And we're going to talk about a lot of that on the John D. Villarreal radio show here on Newstalk 1040 AM. Absolutely. But obviously, we carry Fox News, we carry Fox Across America, Jimmy Fallon, all that type of stuff here, and we have to, get into, and we will, of course, and of course, I'm very political, so we're going to get into some of the other stuff too, but we also bring it all full circle. But part of it is when you're changing everything, you can't be unaware and callous to the fact that this is very disruptive to a lot of people's lives and stuff like that. And, so now we're seeing here a Fox Business headline, how DeSantis announces a plan to fight for America's middle class. Okay, so maybe there's been some adjustments over there. We're going to see. But in part of that, too, is you had Congresswoman Mace, who was questioning a bureaucrat on Capitol Hill and was very frustrated about a lack of answers and stuff. We have to have an accountable bureaucracy. And President Trump had said, I can't remember the exact quote, when he was in Iowa, he said something, he's going to dismantle the deep state or something like that. I think that was something that he said. Did you follow that? Did you have that language, Paul?
Yeah, he'll use different terms, but he's frequently saying recently he'll obliterate the deep state.
Right, and I think that the thing is that it's not. Obviously, we've got great. I mean, I'm sure there's great civil servants out there, and I know a lot of people that have served in government. And our brother serves in government right now, and everything like that. So maybe some of the talk, and I'm not saying President Trump's, but I'm just maybe some of the talk, gets hyperbolic and things like that. But you see, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. that's getting a lot of crowds, getting a lot of attention, talking about having power to the people, if you will, right? And excuse me, what people we need good government. And obviously, you need a lot of people in there to manage the huge federal bureaucracy because the government is so big, because the country's so big, and there's so many things to do. Understood. Okay. But the government, with Congresswoman Mace's questioning, and plenty of others, right? This could have been Chairman Jordan. This could have been Senator Paul, et cetera, et cetera. The government, and there's talk about that too. There's been some other things about Anthony Fauci, Dr. Fauci, that has come out, but we definitely don't have time for that now. But the point is this: you need a responsive government. The government works for the people. We need transparency. We need answers. We need to be able to. We need to have a responsive government. We need to have good government, but we have to have a responsive government. And so all these things come full circle, which is the government has to work for the citizens out there. That's all that it is. It's really not that complicated, right? This is public service. This is helping people out. But we have to figure out, instead of taking sides in hyperpartisanship, and one of the things that we try to do here on the John D. Villarreal radio show is to find that way forward where we work together. I've said it before, I'll say it again. A 50% solution is not a 100% solution. How do we add value? How do I add value to you as a listener out there or as a viewer out there on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube? How do we work together? How do we have conversations? It's okay if we disagree. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out a way to work together. Let's figure out a way to move the needle. Let's figure out a way to live better. At the end of the day, I want this to be news you can use. How can you build your business better? How can you communicate better? How can you have better relationships? How can you find the next great business idea? How can we talk about politics? What should the policy be? Why do these things make sense? And how do we operate in the world and the universe and all the rest of it? There's so many cool things out there and interesting stuff that we need to discuss. And I don't want to get locked down into the red versus blue type of deal. That's there. We'll talk about that, but there's more than that. Does that make sense, Paul? We got about a minute left here. I want your final comments and I'll wrap it up.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Look, we need to figure out how to kind of come together and get solutions. And I like that you brought up RFK. I think RFK and Vivek are getting a lot of traction because they're saying things people like hearing.
There's no doubt about it. They're saying people that, and they're not afraid to go on different shows. We saw RFK on, I believe he was on Hannity. We've seen Vivek that went on the Breakfast Club. We've seen Vivek out there doing all kinds of stuff. That's what we're talking about. You have to be willing to talk to people, push the boundaries out there. That's what we're doing here on the John D. Villarreal radio show on Newstalk 1040 AM, Greater Tampa Bay area. We appreciate you. We appreciate the listening audience. I want you to have a phenomenal week. Stay blessed. Stay tuned. Next week, I'll be here. Can't wait to talk to you. You're listening to John D. Villarreal Radio Show on Newstalk 1040 AM. Newstalk 1040. Have a great week. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll see you next week. And I'll answer the comments offline. Thank you.